Johnson, and I'm so excited to introduce this mom of five to all of you. Yes, she has five children. She's beating me by far. I've only got two kids right here, but Jill, I'm going to catch up to you at some point.
You can
So
catch up. You can do it.
I can't wait to introduce Jill to all of you because she is going to be sharing with you tonight really how to overcome grief with God and how to find your purpose after overcoming that grief, because Jill has such a powerful testimony. So let me introduce her to you. She is a homeschool mom of five who is passionate about encouraging women to reach their full potential by empowering them to step out of their comfort zone to greatness. She loves Jesus, and her husband run a successful investment real estate business and an insurance agency. She loves living life to the fullest and truly just creating new experiences with people, and her family are her favorite people on the planet. But at the age of 38, Jill experienced something that rocked her world forever. She actually lost her husband at the age of 38, and she was left to raise their five kids on her own. And so because of that devastating loss, it has grown and developed her now into truly the woman that she is today. And she has learned every single day that having life is such a gift. And it is her passion to just encourage women to live life to the fullest by being held accountable to themselves and by trusting God's plan for their life. So she's going to encourage you and share with you how to be able to overcome grief with God. So Jill, my first question for you to kick this off is, how did you overcome and move forward after losing your spouse at 38? Walk us through that.
Okay, I will. Thank you for having me on here. It's so amazing. I just feel so blessed. And I honestly feel this is what God has called me to do, is to help mentor other women, especially through loss. It's just something we're all going to experience, right? Whether it's a job loss or maybe a miscarriage or a spouse or a child or a divorce, like we all go through loss. And it was not something that I was used to. Like, I don't know how you get used to that, but I hadn't had a lot of loss. Even when my husband passed away, my grandparents were still alive. And so it just really was out of sequence, right? Like just not the way that it should go. But a lot of searching during, he was actually ill for about, he battled pancreatic cancer for about 11 months. And we walked through that a lot together. Thankfully, he was, a believer and kind of brought me to the Lord. And so we took a lot of, time while he was sick to really kind of, dig into that. But when you have somebody that's sick, it's a very private thing too. And so they go through a lot of grief on their own and they can't really express it. And that part I didn't know. So a lot of it was on me, but not just me, after he was gone, because even though he was sick, it was like one day he was here and the next day he was gone. And so much had to go into that because I didn't really have a chance to lay in bed and grieve like the way, typical people can, because I had five kids. They were 11, not quite 10. He actually had his birthday after his dad passed away. And we had a 6-year-old and our twins were 5. And so babies, right? Like they still don't know. And so there's so much that had to go into just raising them and giving them the confidence that, God was going to continue to protect us. I actually reached out to another widow and she helped me a lot. I actually got into grief counseling, took a class myself, and the kids and I were all in counseling together too. So many books, like it's such an education on grief. You don't understand. And grief comes in waves. It's like you're standing in the ocean and there's like little waves and you doesn't really bother you. And then the next thing you know, you're completely knocked over. And that can happen 3 or 4 times throughout your day. You can watch it happen to your kids, and kids are so interesting when they go through grief. They're sad for a moment and then they're off playing and you think they're fine. So much of that, so much of leaning in. I was really angry. I was angry at God for a while, just because, even though he was sick, I still didn't think he would pass away. I mean, I still didn't, up until the day, he was gone. I just didn't believe it. So I really had to work through that. Obviously he knew I was angry. But I allowed myself to feel that. And I think sometimes we're like ashamed by that, or we think, oh my gosh, God's going to be upset with me because I'm angry. He's like, no, he didn't. He's not. We're his children and he loves us. One of the passage that I kind of held on to is Psalms 34, 18. The Lord is near to the broken and saves the crushed spirit. There's so much, that he walked me through that I don't even really realize. And it's kind of interesting now to hear this kid's perspective because they were so little, to have them kind of like go through their perspective. My little guy, he is such a feeler. He's my middle guy, he's such a feeler. He's actually 16 now. And he shared with me, and I knew he was doing this at the time, but he actually wrote a journal when his dad passed away. And he just told me the other day, he's like, Mom, I can't even read it. It's so sad. He's like, that little boy, I just want to hug him because it's so sad. That's going to bring tears to my eyes. But, he's like, it's so sad. And I can't believe I ever felt that way, but I did. And he reads over it and it's so hard. So overcoming, I haven't yet. I don't feel like, it's just a journey. It's a journey of, who I am and, who I'm going to continue to become. But I know that God has me for a very important purpose. And that is to help, maybe specifically women, children, like get through this, because you can get through it. There's a lot of life and he wants us to live it. I know my late husband wants us to live it. But I don't know that you ever get over it. You don't ever like go past it, right? It just becomes you and you just continue to live this journey as kind of a new person.
I feel like
Forever.
we need to change the title of this to Going Through Grief with God instead of
Yes.
Overcoming Grief with God, because I feel like what you just said, like it's a journey until you're in eternity, right? With Jesus and with your late husband and getting to spend eternity with him. You know what I mean? So it's like, we're going to change the topic here.
I love it.
And everything so that it says Going Through Grief with God. And
because it's a journey. It's a journey forever. And with my kids too, they go through milestones and their dad's not here. And so it's always a journey. It's always a story. And it's a story that we're creating and it's going to be beautiful and it's going to be made complete in heaven. But we, here it's broken. We live very broken.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. And I'm sure there's moms listening to this right now that already feel so encouraged, that have experienced loss in any capacity. Like you were saying, one loss isn't more valid than another. We all experience grief and loss differently over people in our lives. And so it's really beautiful getting to hear your specific testimony of like what God has walked you and even your children through. I'd love to even hear your children's testimonies.
I know
how they've even overcame losing their dad and what that has looked like. So my next question for you is like, what encouragement would you give to any mom, any woman that's listening to this right now who has experienced loss? I mean, I know you just gave so many encouraging words, but what in addition to that would you give?
So somebody said this to me, and this was really early on. So if someone is really early, in grief, like maybe over a miscarriage or something like that, it's not always going to feel this bad. And when she said that to me, it was so new. I think it was like maybe a couple weeks after, and I'm like, are you sure? And I looked at her and I like clung to that. And she's like, no, she's like, and we went through a lot of Bible stuff too. And she just, she gave me a lot of hope. She had actually lost her husband very suddenly, 4 kids. So it was just a very, similar situation. But it's not always going to be like this. It does get better. And I think of it as like, that grief, my late husband, like, is always, he's always with us all the time. Like you look at my kids and I'm like, oh my gosh, that you get that from your dad kind of thing, especially anything ornery that they do. But I feel like it's like a stump that's kind of like in our heart, right? It's the stump, and it can be viewed as like really ugly and hard, but that stump can become really beautiful, like by the plants that we plant around it and the flowers that grow up and, the beautiful grass. And maybe it's, maybe there's a mountain behind it. And that's how life can become, yes, you still have the loss. It's still there. That stump is still there and it's never going to go away, but it doesn't mean that you can't great memories and that life doesn't go on. And there's so much beauty in that. And I think just as you're going through the loss, think about things that you can do and that you can give, because so many times, like we don't want to feel like the victim, and people do things for you and you're just like, I want this to stop. This doesn't feel like and so look for ways that you can go back and give. And maybe it's through, a grief, grief share, grief loss thing. Maybe it's, through your mom's group or something like that. But I think if you can always go and give encouragement, because as I help other, grieving young widows too, it builds, it fills my heart, and it makes my stump even more beautiful than what it is. So I would just say it's not always going to be like this. It's okay to get out and live. It's okay to have joy. I know that was one thing that I had to teach the kids. Like, it's okay to laugh. Like, I know we have a funeral tomorrow, but it's okay to think that that's funny, and to go ahead and be joyous in the moment. And that's hard sometimes.
Yeah, it's hard to have that heavenly joy right here on earth when you're experiencing something that's so painful. I just talked about that at our mom's group this morning, like how to have true biblical joy that isn't based on your circumstance. And I feel like you live that, like, and you're going through that every single day, where like you cling to this heavenly joy that only the Holy Spirit can give, because nothing on this earth can give that kind of joy that you've experienced when you've gone through something that you've gone through. And it's like that true joy only can come from God. And that's how he's gonna help you through, and he's gonna guide you through until there is no pain and there is no loss and there is no sadness here on earth, because we're going to be in heaven, in full completion at that point. So I want to transition, because one of your biggest passions in this season of your life is protecting families with life insurance, because of what you've experienced. You have a very real life testimony of losing your husband and seeing the benefits in a way to having something set up so that you were able to have protection. And then you also, on the other side, have such a deep desire to make sure that families also have this kind of protection, so they don't go through the unthinkable and not have protection if they were ever to lose a loved one. So I want you to share a little bit about your life insurance agency and kind of like your testimony manifested of like what kind of got you into that, and what this season looks like for you as you're building your life insurance agency, because I know this is going to bless families on here that may not have education on this. And just real quick before you answer, this is something that Hunter and I have stepped into as well recently, partnering with Jill, partnering with her husband, Joe, in their life insurance agency, because being young parents ourselves, having two daughters, you always just want to have that peace of mind when you go to sleep at night. Like, nothing beats that. Us going to sleep at night, knowing if Hunter goes to work tomorrow and the unthinkable happens and he gets in a car crash, that we will be protected and we'll be taken care of, so that I do have that cushion financially so we can pay for our home and I can have time to not have to go back to work, which is, it's a precious, priceless thing that I feel like every family should have set up. So talk about that for a second, Jill, and what your passion is behind that.
Yeah, no, so you're so right. Like, it's something we don't want to talk about, right? It's not a fun topic. And actually it was my late husband who's like, hey, we need to have this in place. And I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. And you just kind of put it in place and you don't even really think about it. Right. And we got down the road, and it was about 2 years prior to him getting sick. I had like a really sick feeling that we just didn't have enough. Because, I was like where you were, 2 kids, and I'm like, okay, this is fine. But then when you start adding more, we had a house, we had all of the things. And so I told him, and I said, hey, I think we need more. And he's like, you're probably right. And so we ended up taking out more, life insurance. And he's like, well, you need more too on you. Like, if we lost you, there's a lot that comes, and a lot of people, like, there's no education on this, right? Like, we don't go through the school system and they teach you all about these real life skills that you need. And I can tell you, never in a million years, I feel like it was God telling us that, I felt like that was like a little inkling. And then fast forward. And then of course, actually being on the receiving end of one of those checks, they just mail it to you. It's so cold and hard. And at the same time, you're like on your knees because you're so grateful. Because for me, it meant we had always homeschooled. I was a stay-at-home mom at the time. They were all so little. And it meant that I could keep doing that for a while until I figured out, my bearings. And it was priceless. It really was. I mean, I can't imagine. And I do talk to people who don't have the coverage, and they lose their spouse because you don't know like we have right now. Right. And so now that has really turned into a passion of mine, and being recently remarried, he actually married all six of us, my husband, Joe. He was on an opposite spectrum where he lost his dad, and they end up having to pay for all of the things that he had outstanding bills and things like that. And so he came from it from a different point of not wanting families to go through that. I come from that of being the wife where her husband didn't wake up the next day. And so now we are really passionate about building our agencies and really educating young families. Even, we work with clients who, gosh, they're in their 60s, 70s, and they can't get the coverage now. And they're like, I wish I'd been in my 20s, my 30s, and I had gotten this in place and I wouldn't be in this situation. Because you don't, having gone through it, when you have a funeral and you have to deal with all those things, it's so expensive, and people don't know that. And so now it's really just our heart to serve families and just educate them. But there's so many different things and policies that you can put in place for your kids that are actually, savings, like glorified, even better savings accounts, where they become investment accounts. So there's just so many different vehicles. Sammy and Hunter are going to be amazing at this. I'm so excited. I love this duo so much. I can't even tell you how, they're such a light to us. I know they're going to be such a light to you guys and help you with every need that you possibly have, because it's so important. And we need good agents to educate people on that.
Well, just the education piece alone is, I feel like, what's missing so much in our culture, in our society, in my age group. I mean, even maybe in your age group, like being in my 20s, nobody talks about life insurance until you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s. And then it's like, what if it's too late? Like, it's always that thing where you're like, I'll just set it up later. I'll just do it later. And so you just pocket it and you forget about it. But like you're saying, it's just so invaluable. It's not something that you want to talk about, but it's one of those hard conversations that you need to have with your spouse and that you need to get set up in place, because it's so easy to do. I mean, we can write quotes for people in like literally 15, 20 minutes and find them something that can give them the coverage that they need. God forbid something did happen and they wanted to have that protection. And then, like you were saying, what Hunter and I are learning that has been so mind-blowing is the really just like wealth building hack that a lot of people don't know through life insurance that provides this opportunity for you to build cash flow for your children and to build retirement for yourself and to have an extra really just like account that's building income through the insurance plan so that you can pull from it if you need to in 10, 20, 30 years later down the road. Like for Hunter and I being 25, having two babies, we're thinking about in 20 years when they're going to college or if they're getting married or we need to buy them a car, how we can pull from that to be able to afford those things instead of going into debt or having to pull from direct savings. And so it's just such a smart thing to have set up with the double benefit of like coverage and protection if something were to happen. And you can also build wealth through the plan, especially if you're listening to this and you have young children like me and Hunter do, and you want to get something set up now. You'd want to get it set up now because time matters when it comes to compounding that cash value over the years. And that's what Hunter and I are learning. And we're like, heck yeah, we're so happy we set this up in our 20s. And we're talking to friends that we have in their 30s and 40s that are like, I've never heard of this. And
you'll be
amazed about it.
Yes, you'll be amazed. And I think you hit the nail on the head too. People think it's so time consuming, but we can have them covered in the matter of like you said, 15, 20 minutes, and they can go on with their lives and live the life that they want and not have to think about it because we've done all the hard work for them. And it's so simple. And then as far as the kids, and really yourself too, right? We have no idea what's down the road. We could, develop something or have cancer or something like that, or God forbid our children, they're always insurable when you have that policy in place. And that's so huge because it is a gift. Your health is a gift. And you want to take advantage of the low premiums and things like that when you're healthy and young.
Which is so important to think about that as well. The living benefits, if you have disability, all of those kinds of things. I mean, there's just so many options. And this is one of the reasons I wanted to bring you on and I wanted to interview you, because you have such a powerful testimony of what you've experienced, how God has brought you through that, and now how God has taken what you've been through and he's saying, okay, now I want you to serve families and serve other people to make sure that if this happens to them, they have that kind of protection that you had while you're still living here on earth. And so Jill and I have an incredible free gift for all of you to be able to plug into, because like we said, if you're listening to this right now and you don't have something set up, we'll do the legwork for you. We have a super simple form that you're just going to fill out. I'm going to link it below. It's just a client information form where you're just going to fill out your basic information so that we can know a little bit more about you, about your health. And then we're going to do the legwork and we're going to run quotes for you so that we can see what option works best for you and your family. And these quotes can be super affordable. Okay. So we're not talking about hundreds of dollars a month here. Like we're talking, could even be less than $100 a month, less than 150, super affordable options. Everybody should have coverage just to have that peace of mind every night when you go to bed, that you know that your family, your children, your spouse are protected. So I'm going to link that below. You can click it, fill it out. And then my husband and I, Hunter, who's not on this Zoom, and Jill's husband, Joe's not on this Zoom, but we work together. We're like tag teaming over here, like husband-wife teams that are serving families, building agencies, just helping people have that peace of mind. And so I know for me and Hunter right now, we're having so much fun just educating families, helping them get protected. But Jill, will you talk a little bit for a second about anybody who may be listening to this right now? I know for me and Hunter, it's been so invaluable learning about this opportunity as a career path to even step into being an agent, because we're new life insurance agents and it is really a whole new world, a whole new career path that's super lucrative. So if you're listening and you want to get protection, fill out that link right there. We'll contact you and get that set up. But if you're someone that even wants to leverage an opportunity to bring in an incredible income for your family, Jill, will you talk about that for a second?
I will. And, they can even do this part-time around other things. I mean, Sammy, look at us. We all have other businesses and things like that. And what I love about it is it's a career path. And so it's a skill we're always going to have. I mean, we're licensed within our states and many others, if you choose to. And it's such an incredible way to, yes, create an income for your family, but also through creating that income, and it is a great income, you're serving. So you spend all day serving and protecting, these people, these families. And I always think of it as, really protecting the women and children at home that often don't have a voice. And so it really is a career path that you're going to lay your head on the pillow at night and be like, I just protected a family that didn't think they could afford it, or this, or whatever the situation might be. And it's so amazing. And getting your life insurance license is not that hard. Sammy and I both survived. It's just a little bit of studying. It makes you feel like you're in college again for about, 10 days or whatever. Then you take the state exam, and then Sammy and I, Joe and Hunter, we've got you. Like, we will walk you through every step of the way. It's an incredible community. The mentorship is amazing. We actually have leads available to us. This was something that I was like, Lord, are you sure you want me to do this? I don't really want to talk to my friends, talk to everybody I know about life insurance necessarily. And he kept nudging me along. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to listen. But we actually have leads available within the company that we work with, which is amazing. So these are people who really do have the need. I know Sammy was just talking before we even started this conversation. She's like, I just booked an appointment with a lady and she really wants this. And like, that feels really good. That feels really good to be helping those families. So if you're like, maybe you're in a crossroads, maybe you've got like a side hustle, but you're looking for a main hustle, or vice versa, we've got you. Like, definitely, like, let's get on a Zoom like this. Let's talk about it. We can share so much information because it really is a career path, and it's one that just, I swear, it fills you up every single day.
Yeah, we're already experiencing the fulfillment, even just from our first few initial calls, calling leads, seeing how that system works, which is super cool. We've only called about 10 leads so far and already have an appointment set, which is incredible. That's amazing. So for anybody listening that wants to take that next step in learning more in terms of getting protection for life insurance, you're just going to click the link below and fill that out. And that's how Hunter and I, we can get connected with you. Jill and Joe can also get connected with you. We're just one big team, one big family working together here to truly serve you. And we just thank you for your time, for hearing just a little bit about this, but more importantly, Jill's encouragement as well of just pouring into any mom, any woman, anybody that's listening to this right now that has experienced grief, that has gone through that. We hope that you just feel God's love and his presence and his peace, just from when Jill was talking. And we hope that you can use this as a resource even to share with other moms that you know that may be experiencing grief or going through something. I know Jill is always open to connect with any woman or any mom that has experienced that. So I'm going to also put Jill's handle below so that you can connect with her, because she's incredible. And yeah, thank you, Jill, for your time. Thanks for pouring into the moms and into the women and just sharing your heart and your testimony. It means so much to me, and I know it meant so much to the woman that's listening right now.
Such an honor. Thank you, Sammy.
You're welcome. All right, bye.